how do I'm going to use myself as the example right now because I'm going to be selfish.
Yeah.
How do I know who I am and therefore so I know how to best operate and show up in this world to do the work that is best truthful to myself so that I can best serve others as well.
Through awareness, we're able to start to see like, oh, whoa, I do have a bunch of things on the fire. Wait, is that too much? Is that not enough? Like, should I, because the manifesting generator oftentimes focus, only one thing at a time, right? You shouldn't be doing multiple things and, you know,
again,
you diffract your focus and it's not going to work. Yeah. Well, for you, you actually love having a lot of things on the fire. So when it comes to deciding, is it too much, is it too little, or deciding anything really, you use this key that we call it.
What I find really profound is the importance of know thyself. Mm-hmm. And what does that really mean? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I know we could go down like a spiritual a path where it's like, what is the self and is there really a self at the end of the day? But let's maybe like, we peel it back a little bit more and be like, how do I'm going to use myself as the example right now because I'm going to be selfish.
Yeah.
How do I know who I am and therefore so I know how to best operate and show up in this world to do the work that is best truthful to myself so that I can best serve others as well? Because a couple things I think about in knowing we're having this conversation, I've been looking forward to this conversation for a really good damn time, so thank you for being here first up. So like, I think there's going to have to be many parts to this as well as we kind of like peel that onion for it. But for me, a very poignant time was me coming to realization of running the last company, being on my knees, crying to my wife one night, just being like, I'm so out of alignment. The pain and the suffering was just tearing me apart, and I finally admitted to it for myself. And then through having the conversation with Lauren, it was just like, oh shit, like I am hurting. I'm hurting real bad. I need to make changes with that as well. And that's a part of the process, and that's perfectly fine. I'm so happy I went through that as well. But then now going through into this new chapter of my life as well, being like, okay, like one, who am I? And two, what is it that I want to be doing and how do I want to be doing it? And then it was the case of what are the principles, what are the heuristics, what are the guideposts, what's the compass that helps me navigate myself as I go through this process. And I want to share it from my first person perspective here because I feel like it's going to resonate with the entrepreneur listening, where they're going to be like, oh yeah, like dude, I've totally had I think we all have.
You're pulling a shark.
Yeah.
Please don't do that because I wanted to remember that too.
we have that experience of I'm not wanting to make decisions that I'm not wanting to make decisions. I'm not wanting to make assumptions. I'm not wanting to fall prey to beliefs that aren't going to best serve me.
Yeah.
And how do I best do that? And that is where I needed to be able to figure out, well, where does that information come from? And yes, I think introspectively, it's very important to be able to do that, but I also think there's a limit. Like I had this belief, like the only way for me to know what's behind me is to have a loving person in front of me tell me what's behind me. And that is one way to be able to figure out what's going on in kind of like a 360 view also. And then even more recently, post-sale, figuring out what I want to do. I had it pretty clear, this is what I want to do. Like I literally had the last Zoom call, like said like, peace out, pressed end meeting, 100% done. Do you know what I mean? I text messaged my wife, Lauren, and I was like, done. And she was like, we went and met up at a cafe on the beach in Bali. I sat down, I had a soda water for 30 minutes. We were like, wow, this is amazing. And I was like, I'm getting back to work. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, I'm bored. Like, I want to do something now. Do you know, I want to be creative with what I want to be able to do.
Yeah.
And then it was recently being like, oh, there are changes. There was still misalignment with what was happening. So I'm finding my way because this new model that I've gone into, it's really rare. Like I only know a couple of people that are really doing this. So it's like I'm being able to like figure it out as I make it and as I figure it, as I go through the path. And it's not like I have this data set that I can really start relying on to be able to be like, oh, like that's what you do and that's how you do it.
Yeah.
And then more recently, I was telling you before we hit record here, where it was like I had a call with a lady and she was like tapping into my guides, and something that came through was, and it was so true, and this was the first time in my entire life I'm actually asking, what does Chris want? And it was like this gut punch of like, oh, it really is the first time I'm truly asking, what does Chris want? And then the questions that then flow on from there is like, well, then if I start to figure out what do I want, well, then how do I really want to be able to get there? Like, what is the path there? This is a long monologue for myself as I try and set the stage for us to be like, what the two of you do, I think is really cool. Not just cool, really effective and efficient as well, because you're able to set these guideposts, these heuristics, these principles, these like lessons for us to be able to navigate through. So if I was to sit down with the two of you and I was like, what do you do? What's the answer?
Santos, what would you say?
I would say that ultimately we help people become the fullest expression of who they are. Do work they love, feel recognized, feel peaceful, feel happy,
Satisfied.
and satisfied in the realm of business as an entrepreneur. That's really what we do. And there's a whole bunch of different like applications, you know, like we talked about the entrepreneur who maybe like yourself is very successful on the business front, making money, building a team, having traffic and sales and conversions and all the stuff everybody wants, and yet there's a misalignment personally that may be causing friction, pain, dissatisfaction, frustration, anger, disappointment. And that personal alignment is a really important part of all of our entrepreneurial journeys, whether it's someone like yourself who has had the time to build up a track, or not necessarily the time, but you put in the sweat, you put in the work, and you've got the results on the business front, and yet there was something inside. Or whether it's a new entrepreneur who's trying to figure out like, how do I even get started? And really they start to get guided by a lot of different other offers out there on the market, which say, here's exactly the way, right? Here's the formula, because it's unknown, you know, this life we live, like there's no real blueprint. And as much as we look for like some sort of exact path to take, it just doesn't really seem to exist. And when we try to conform ourselves to here's how it works, step by step, 1, 2, 3. Sometimes it works really well, and 9 times out of 10, we should take some of that and kind of make it our own instead of just taking it perfectly like that.
You know what was really interesting came up with me the last time we spoke, and so for the audience to know as well, I worked with the two of you and it was fantastic, and what you gave me was incredible, and I love it, and I highly recommend it. And I was thinking actually after the last conversation, I do this a lot, where I was like, I put myself in your position and I was like, how do I build your business? Do you know what I mean? I went through that thought experiment. I went through kind of like, all right, if I was to like invoke yourself, and what would I go through? It's interesting because I also feel like we live in so much of a world that is too much looking for a prescription or a checklist or the exact set of steps that we must follow. That's not life.
No.
That like no one can do that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And so it was interesting because then I thought it was like, okay, what's the actual like the message, the offer, the promise that you're making to the marketplace? And it can't be like, here are the 9 steps for you to achieve X, Y, Z sort of thing. It's like, no, it's like there is a dance here that must be done. I'm helping you set a rhythm, set a tone, be able to find some harmony with yourself. But ultimately, it's on you, which is what it should be. Like the responsibility, like you can do this amazing work, but it's still my responsibility to then take that information and then to be able to start using it and applying it, and then having a kind of back and forth about, that didn't really work, and that felt kind of good, and like moving towards that. One thing that was extremely profound that I very much took from it was owning my power of having that knowing instantly. And just like, I know, like a business problem might come up, something might come up, I know what it is. Kylie Ryan and I, we've had this discussion many times, where she takes her time going through that process, and there's so many times when there's been like I knew from the absolute like second that arose, but then she's had to take the time to go, oh yeah, you knew, and I was like, I kind of knew, but I had to let you go on that path as well. So then, but the exact same, I then apply that to my wife, Lauren. She's a projector. So then it was interesting to then being like, okay, like I literally took that, and then we even spoke about my daughters as well. And they're like, like, and being able to listen to what's going on and how they're operating. So not only is this entrepreneurial, this is relationships throughout my life, and then with my wife especially, and with my daughters, and with myself. Like that's cool. Really cool.
The thing is, like, the work that we do is based on human design, and human design is applicable to all sorts of areas, like
to every aspect of your life.
Every aspect, kids, love, relationships, money. We specifically in our business focus on entrepreneurship and how do you apply it to business, because like that itself is a whole area of focus.
But like secretly, it's like a gateway drug.
It's a Trojan horse.
To the rest of your life,
It is the Trojan horse as well. And I would have done the exact same thing as well, because I think talking to the entrepreneurs, I think like us as a market of entrepreneurs, we very much need this, and I think we're more open to it as well. But we then are able to apply it. And I think that awareness that comes with a good entrepreneur is then they are able to apply that and to be able to take that awareness throughout the rest of their life.
Really quickly, I love that you're joining us on the podcast. And if you haven't yet, I have a YouTube channel, which is our main hub. This is where we have all the episodes, so you can watch the conversations and join each episode to get all of the best content, the best insights. So click over to YouTube, go to the Christopher Dufey channel, as I would love for you to be able to join us there.
You know what you talked about, we call these things one-size-fits-all solutions, right? The things that it's like looking for the prescription, looking for what's the five-step
funnel,
thing,
the three-step, the exact business in a box,
thing, right? And the reason we look for that is because our whole lives we were brought up in that way. We take a test, and there is an answer key. There is something that the teacher knows that you don't, and they're testing to see if you know it, and the answer is crystal clear. It's black and white. It's on their Scantron or whatever. It's on their teacher key, right?
And there's a right way and a wrong way.
Exactly.
And this is like human design talks about this, and even modern psychology, what we know about philosophy, even from ancient wisdom, this idea of conditioning and like teaching people a certain way of being, that if you show me a child up to the age of 7, I'll show you the man, that we get conditioned like in school, society, our parents, literally from the moment that you're born, that you're a boy, they wrap you in a blue blanket, you're a girl, they wrap you in a pink blanket, all trying to turn you, sometimes well-meaning, oftentimes well-meaning, but conditioning you to be someone and something that you're not. And so the challenge comes when you get older, like he said, like you go through school, you're a straight A student, or maybe you're not the straight A student, but you know that there's a right way and there's a wrong way to be, and that the right way is that everyone answers these questions in the exact same way, and everyone does this test or this experiment or whatever in the exact same way, and that's how you get an A, and that's how you're correct. But in reality, life isn't like that. And entrepreneurship definitely isn't like that. And so when you come out into the entrepreneurship game and you're like, okay, tell me how to win. Like, give me the Scantron, give me the test, give me the open book, and I'll just read it and I'll just apply it. Like, it doesn't, the system breaks down because that's not how we're designed to be.
We just unconsciously approach entrepreneurship as if there was a answer key somewhere.
And a right way.
As if someone had the exact answers behind, closed doors.
And a way there is, but it's within us. It's not without.
Beautifully said, because I was just about to say we're usually looking for external, outside sources for us to be able to tell us, oh, like that's the funnel that we want to do. And I think where I really apply this, especially with the partners that I work with now, it's really like, what's the model of the big picture, what's the business, but and what's going to best suit you as a human being here now in this chapter of your life, and then getting nitty gritty into like, do you know what I mean, like what is the economic model, what's the acquisition model, what's the delivery model, what's the operational model, like we can get into that nitty gritty side of it. It's funny, what popped into my mind just before as well was like the John Lennon quote where he said, my mother always said to me, happiness was the key to life. And at school there was an assignment and they asked, what do you want to be when you most grow up? And he wrote happy. And the teacher said, you've misunderstood the assignment. And he said back to the teacher, no, you misunderstand life.
And the teacher misunderstood the assignment too.
So when I think of maybe let's think about it this way. What are the main categories, departments, buckets that we might then think of as an entrepreneur that then start to lead to what it is that best helped me understand who I am?
We call these keys in the entrepreneur code. Call them keys because they're what help you unlock your fullest expression, your fullest potential.
Your unique
path to success unlocks when you use these keys. And the first most important key we call the entrepreneur type. Now, the entrepreneur type is really this question of what are the main characteristics of who I am and what are my strengths and my weaknesses? Like generally, like what am I like? And what we see is that there are 4 types of entrepreneurs. One type, we call them the generators. We call the other type the projectors, the reflectors, and also the manifestors. And these are the same as the energy types in human design. If you're familiar with those, it's the same exact types. And when we look at that, when we look at those types, we say, okay, what are they going to look like for a generator to be in business? And what we see is the most important thing is to have the self-awareness that if you are a generator entrepreneur type, your like number one thing to remember is that you're here to do work you love. Like in your own story, where you sold your business, had literally like there was nothing on your plate. This is like an entrepreneur's dream, right? To have an exit and not have
kind of.
Some people, right?
It is until you get there.
It is, and then you're like, well, my calendar's empty, and got nothing to do, and like I gotta do something. Let's get to work, right? And generators actually love to work when they're doing work they love. If they're doing work that they don't love, it degenerates them and literally shortens their life. It makes them sick. It makes them frustrated. It literally turns them into what we call the not self, where they're not themselves anymore. And so as a generator entrepreneur type, which we have 60 to 70% of the population, so it's most of the people, most of us are generators. I'm a projector personally, but most people are generators.
And there are 2 types of generators. You and I are both manifesting generators. And so especially as a manifesting generator, you're designed to be multi-passionate, you're designed to do work you love, and you are not here to sleep your life away. And so when you said, great, we went to go get, a sparkling water, and then I'm like, let's get back to work. Like, that's correct for you. Now, if you think about your wife as a projector, you think about someone like Kylie, like Santos, not at all. That's not their path to success.
The number one thing to remember as a projector is to remember that you're here to guide, advise, and direct others. And the biggest thing that a projector goes through is that they look around and everybody else is running around, tons of energy, just getting things, 5, 6, 7 things, 8, 10, 30, 300,000 things that they're all doing, millions of things that everybody else seems to be able to do. And the projector is like falling behind.
This is so profound. So I'm just going to use Lauren and myself as examples, her being a projector, and she's such an amazing guide. Like, just, it blows me away. And her having that understanding of like her, I'll just call it her gestalt, do you know what I mean? Her essence is like, she knows if she's not taking time to rest and just be, like, she's not like being able to rejuvenate, and she can, like she says, it's like her soul's just getting like sucked out sort of thing.
Yeah.
Where me, I'm like, I want to get some shit done. Do you know what I mean? But also,
and you run circles around her. And depending on what the girls are, if they're also generators, she's around like battery packs, motors all the time. So she has to remember that She does not have to try to keep up with you all. It's important for her to rest before she's tired and to get that adequate rest and recovery that she needs.
Number one challenge for projectors is exhaustion and guiding the wrong people that leads to bitterness and more exhaustion.
I'm feeling unrecognized, yeah.
Okay, so being a manifesting generator myself, I know that I'm supposed to have a few stokes in the fire. And please correct me wherever I go wrong, right? How do I know when I've got too many things going on?
Yeah, that's a good question. So this is another key. We call this one the decision-making process, right? This key is all about understanding how you make decisions. Whereas the entrepreneur type key is much more about awareness and going, oh, I should be aware about, I'm multi-passionate, right? I should be aware of like, oh, I got to do work that I love. Be careful of being frustrated and not doing work that you don't love because that's going to lead to frustration. Like, make sure you're doing work you love. Projectors.
Allow life to come to you.
Allow life to come to you. Projectors, make sure you're waiting for the invitation. Make sure you're resting before you're tired, right? So through awareness, we're able to start to see like, oh, whoa, I do have a bunch of things on the fire. Wait, is that too much? Is that not enough? Like, should I, because the manifesting generator oftentimes focus, only one thing at a time, right? You shouldn't be doing multiple things and, you know, again, you diffract your focus and it's not going to work. Yeah. Well, for you, you actually love having a lot of things on the fire. So when it comes to deciding, is it too much, is it too little, or deciding anything really, you use this key that we call the decision-making process. The decision-making process for you is to trust your gut. It's different for everyone. For you is to trust your gut, and you know instantly in the moment by doing the gut check, where you can literally, someone has to prompt you, right? A friend, it could be anybody, but somebody else prompts you, asks you a yes or no question. Do you have too many fires going on right now? And if your gut says, then you do. And if your gut says, then that's not a no. That's like, no, not really.
It's a maybe.
Maybe. Do you have too many things in the fire? You don't. Maybe you need more, right? So.
Or you're okay where you are. Or it's not a problem.
Yeah. So you're able to get wisdom. It's the difference between looking for, the exact map of where you're going and having a compass. Yes. If you have a compass and you always know where true north is, you know what the next step is, you know your direction, even if you may not know what's on the other side. And let's be honest, we don't really know what's on the other side. I mean, we're literally on a rock hurling through space, circling whatever is this universe, whatever is this galaxy. Like, we're literally just floating around in space. We don't know where we're going or what's next or what we really even are. And so having a compass of what your body is telling you, hey, you don't have that many things on the fire. You could take on a couple of other things just through the gut wisdom, just through your own inner body's wisdom. That's how you are able to know whether you have too many things or not too many things.
So good. And so when it then comes to my mind of the decision making of what is the right business for someone to be able to follow, what's the right model, what is it that they should be doing, I remember a part of the process we worked through was the quadrants, and the quadrants being like what's more specifically to the model and like how you should be working with people as well. Yeah. Can you unpack that key for me, please?
There's a lot of different ways to discuss business models, and many different people have frameworks for how to think about them. I have a background in physics and math, and so I just looked at it from a purely mathematical perspective in terms of the quantity of people that are served within that business model. And if you look at just the mathematics,
this is so good. I love geeking out on this.
Yeah, of course, me too. You're able to see that there are really 4 kind of ranges if you just look at the numbers, where there are businesses that are able to grow to billions of dollars of value in terms of how much they're worth, in terms of how much revenue they're generating, and they only have tens of clients.
Yes.
You're talking about really high ticket coaches, or maybe corporate contracts or government contracts or things like that, or wholesale contracts. We're able to have a small volume of clients and deal with and actually run a lot of volume, where the game of scaling has nothing to do with increasing the amount of clients or customers that you work with, and everything to do with increasing the quality of the client and the customer you work with and increasing your price point. And that's the first model. That's high ticket. Projectors are uniquely designed to crush high ticket, And so that's like their primary model.
That's because their greatest impact will always come from being one-on-one in person. And so I'm sure you've experienced that with Lauren and with Kylie and with Santos even. When you're in aura, when you're in their energy, there's this profound capacity to be able to guide and direct your energy, because projectors and generators have this divine relationship where the projector can see, hey, they don't have all the energy, and so they understand energy efficiency, like innately, that wisdom's there. And so when you recognize a projector, they can say, this is how to best guide your energy. And then for the projector, you're like their battery pack. You give them energy, you give them motor and fuel to be able to achieve more in their lives. And so that beautiful balance that they have together, that partnership, is really symbiotic. And so that's why projectors have high ticket as their best business model.
And even if you think about the word projector and how a projector actually works, there's a lot of different kinds of projectors and all that, so I won't get too technical, but the gist of it is that there's some sort of tiny image, and then there's some sort of magnification process, and there's some sort of light that allows you to take a tiny little thing and project it onto a big screen, right? And so the projector is able to take a tiny bit of information from the other, magnify it, and be able to clearly see that way. This way, look, there's clearly a wall over there and a rock over here. The path is wide open right there. And you're like, oh, I didn't see that because it was so small inside of me. But the projector is naturally able to magnify it.
And really to ask the questions that can help you to arrive at that solution for yourself
based
as well.
on the information that they're magnifying, right? So high ticket, right? That's the first one. Tens of clients, of customers. The second one is called tribal. A tribal model is one that really is optimized, or really is focused on hundreds of clients, hundreds of customers. And the game is really to find the balance between how do I serve hundreds of people and at a price point that's going to work for them and also be able to grow my business. And so this is where the realm of like group programs or anything that's going to be kind of in a group container, especially coaches and consultants, they do this. It generally requires like not in person, but personal attention.
Yes.
Not necessarily one-on-one. It's higher touch than a product or than a membership that doesn't have any contact with people, or than a course, for example. But it's not as high touch as one-on-one, right? So it's that kind of in-between space. And if you think about, there was a study done about, you know, the size that a human village can get before it kind of starts.
150.
150, right? So a tribal model is about optimizing for like that 150.
Dunbar's number.
Yes, exactly. The 150 people in the tribe, and to serve them and to support them with an offer through groups mostly. Some one-on-one is okay, but the main mechanism is groups, and then to optimize the price point so that you're able to run a successful, profitable business. So we're talking 10 to 100K, you know, and these masterminds exist out there where people are charging within that range.
This might be too simplistic, Santos, so shoot me down if it is. Let's just say, what's the type that is typically geared towards a tens tribal model? What is that?
Projector.
Okay, so let's just say, for example, we have a projector and we're like, okay, your better fit, maybe then rather than best, your better fit is a tribal in the hundreds. Would I then sit down, if I sat down with a partner with this kind of scenario in my head and I go, okay, one of my next questions may be, how much money do you want to make? And they say, $1 million. Let's say, I want to profit $1 million. Okay, great. So then my job, or what needs to then happen would be then, okay, with, let's say, 150, 200, 300 people, whatever this kind of like arbitrary number is, but we know the range it should be in, is we need 300 people to then be able to create a profit of $1 million. So therefore, what's the model, what's the price point, and then we can kind of piece those connections together. Am I getting that right?
100%. And this is how I run, this is how I come up with business strategy that is based on your design, that it's based on your type, right? So for example, there's a projector that booked a session with me. She runs a jewelry business, and she's like a one-woman show, you know, makes the jewelry, hand makes it, sells it.
It's very beautiful, using crystals, lots of intention.
Yeah, beautiful. And the kind of price point she sells at currently, maybe $500, $800 per piece.
Under 500, 800.
And then custom pieces are the ones that are closer to like $800, $1,000. And she comes to me like, God, I love my business, right? I love crystal jewelry. I love the concept of it. I love the vision of having this business. But my God, is it so much energy for me to do the jewelry, do the marketing, do everything? I can't do that. And so other entrepreneurs seem to be able to run everything. We've all seen the Shark Tank episode where the person like runs the business, ships the products, does it out of their garage, and does it all themselves, right? That's probably a generator, right? Not a projector. So she comes to me just exhausted, can't do it. How do I build a business by design? How do I build a business based on my design? And looking at the business models as a projector, it's like, look, it's clear that for you, high ticket, it's just going to be more efficient because you don't have that much energy, and because you're a projector, how can you sell jewelry? Let's keep it the same. You're selling this product. How can you sell jewelry and where every time you make a sale, it's maybe 10K?
Yes.
Or 20K?
Yes.
She's like, oh my God, well, this person would have to be like pretty well off and pretty wealthy. And it's like, yeah, or maybe weddings or events or selling to someone who's facilitating a group. And she's like, oh my God, I know so many people that actually do that here in Austin, and that would probably buy a piece for every person, every member coming to their event, every person attending the wedding, all the bridesmaids, right? And all of a sudden, she can redesign her business model to say, if I want to make $1 million, instead of getting myself 500 pieces or whatever $1 million
and being exhausted and burnt out and not able to keep up with it,
she can set targets based off of her revenue numbers, based off of the mathematics of her business model that are going to actually allow her to do it in a way that feels good for her. It's almost like this story I tell about going mountain biking for the first time, and I was with her and some of my brother-in-law and some friends, and my brother-in-law used to cycle everywhere in DC. He lived in DC. He would cycle everywhere.
Yeah, so, he's very into it.
He's like hardcore cyclist. Me, on the other hand, I don't really cycle. I'm an electric unicycle guy. Like, I don't pedal. You know what I'm saying? But I'm a competitive guy. So we're both racing and we're like riding and we're going and just going up and down. And it's a lot of fun. And before you know it, of course, we left everybody in the dust. And we look back and, oh my God, I got to slow down and wait for everyone. And so we stop. And as our friends start to come in, I see there's someone way in the back. Like, I'm talking, everyone stops, and then there's a big gap, and then there's someone like trailing way at the end. I'm like, what's going on here? And turns out it was Edie. And I'm like, why is she all the way back there? And if you know anything about her, she's obviously a fit woman. She's a dancer. She literally teaches dance. Like, there's no reason why she should be in the back of the line.
Why is she slacking?
Why is she slacking? So I wait for her, and as she's coming up, I mean, she's bent over, she's huffing and puffing, she's dripping sweat, and she's just like, this is so hard. Like, I don't understand how everyone's able to climb this mountain so easily. I'm like, mountain? We're on a hill. Like, I mean, it's not even that steep.
This is a mound.
I know, yeah, it's like, it's a little mound. It's not that hard. And I'm like, what gear is your bike on? And she says, it's on the fastest gear. And I go, what gear is that? And it's like, the highest number. And if you know how the bike works, the highest number does allow you to go the fastest, meaning the top speed, but it does not help you accelerate. It does not help you go uphill easily. So all we did was...
It's for when you're going downhill.
It's for when you're going downhill, where you're flat and going really fast. So I just turned down the gear down to 1, and all of a sudden the gears change, and she's able to take off, and she's literally at the front of the pack now. Although she did kind of have super sore legs after that.
And what's funny about that is we went with my childhood best friend, we went with her and her boyfriend at the time. And as we were starting, she told me, she was like, hey, I usually put it on this gear because that makes it easier. And I thought, I turned and I thought, no, I don't really feel anything. It's not strong enough. Yeah. It wasn't hard enough for me. And so I didn't listen to her. I ignored her. And that's what happens so much as entrepreneurs, right? We're so conditioned that if it's not hard or you're not like grinding or it's not painful, then you're not going to get the real benefit out of it, when instead it can all be easy. It can be flow, it can be fun, it can feel like satisfaction or joy or peace, rather than it feeling so hard all the time. And that is actually the key to success.
Yeah.
Okay, 2 things come up for me now. I want to dive into them. The first one almost makes me want to hurl that this is about to come out of my mouth, because as we were saying before, when we just first met, I was like, all this stuff has been coming up for me recently, and there's like this. I know I'm a completely different human being than I was not that long ago. There's been a huge evolution. There's a new chapter change. All of this stuff.
Always.
And how do I exactly always? And then how do I do what is most truthful to myself moving forward? And it's interesting because as we're speaking and have this conversation, I'm having these light bulbs go off constantly in the back of me of like, oh, like that's how I do things better. That's how I help people more. Like I'm getting this ton of connections right now. And a part of it is like, oh, I have to know the person's human design when we immediately start working. Like this has to be a part of the process right now. And there is a aversion or a stigma or something behind that gives me this like, whoa, like, hang on, like that's too woo. Do you know what I mean? Which is weird because I can totally play in the woo pool. Do you know what I mean? Like I can jump in there and have a really good time and play with the best of them as well. How can you help me break that stigma, that belief, that something about was like, hang on, like, are we talking astrology right now? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, what's your birthplace and time is going to determine where, like, what my business model should be. Exact time. Do you know what I mean? Like, help me break that.
Yeah. I got you.
Santos will do this. I just want to say, first of all, you're not alone. In human design, I am something known as a heretic, and I have something called defined head centers. So I am deeply skeptical about all things.
Yeah.
And our backgrounds are like, Santos is an ex-NASA scientist, so he always talks about how he went from like astronomy to astrology, and he's like, how do I wrap my head around that? And the first time I gave a talk about this at an event, and it was purely human design based, we didn't have the entrepreneur code or any of that at that time. This guy came up to me at the end and he was like, you know, I was so sure when I saw you on the schedule that you were going to be the one that I was most clued out of and like most checked out, because I just thought it was like, he thought I was going to come in and like a Kundalini head wrap or something. And not that there's anything wrong, but I love that. And just be like, yes, this is who you are, the energy. And he was like, but you're eloquent and like you're logical and like, how does it happen on his exact birth time? So Santos, would you like to?
Yeah.
You're not alone.
The rocket scientist, please help me.
I got you. I mean, I was skeptical too. In fact, she got into it first before I was just like, what are you talking about? Like, why would I study this stuff? I literally, astronomy, astrophysics to astrology makes no sense to me.
And I kid you not, part of how I sold myself on this, like everywhere I would go, whether it's like I'm at the dance studio or I'm at a dinner party, like this is how I met Katie. I just would ask people like, what time were you born? And I would pull up their chart and I would share things and it would resonate. And I collected like hundreds of people's charts, in part,
literally
selfishly just like proving to myself like,
could this be true?
I need a big enough data set to look at. Okay, I can lean into it.
Exactly. After 250 charts, that's when I saw it, because she was starting to attract sessions, $500, $1,000 per session, and I was like, how are you making more on astrology sessions than in our actual like marketing business? It makes no sense to me. Maybe I should pay attention. Let me take a class. And I'll tell you, the first thing I looked at was how, like, is there some sort of possible scientific foundation for this? Is there some sort of thing that could kind of take it out of the space of woo and maybe even religion or dogma or like believe this or believe that, trust me, just because I'm saying it, and make it testable. Make it make it something that I can actually experiment with, that I can actually test out and experience for myself to see if it works. And if it doesn't work, throw it out. And if it does work, well, maybe lean into it and see what comes out of it. And I spoke to this military veteran, what was it, 20 years in the military or something, Navy guy, hardcore kind of guy, and he asked me all the right questions.
Marine or something, but
which is where I'll take it from this. And at the end of him asking these questions and me giving these answers, he was basically like, I was born at 9/18. He like knew his exact birth time and he wanted to pull an immediate chart. So basically, to really start to take it out of the woo realm and into the potential scientific realm, we've got to build what's called like a theory of some kind, right? Because let's be honest, in the realm of science, everything begins as a theory. In fact, the way that our world works is a theory. We call it the standard model. Standard, so it sounds more legit. But
We have no idea.
It's a theory still, right? It's definitely a theory.
I want to jump in and say thank you for listening and supporting the show, as at the moment we don't run any ads on the show. And if you're getting value, if you're loving the show, then I invite you right now to share this episode. Share this directly to a friend or share it on your socials. And when you do share it on social, please tag me so I can personally say thank you to you. My social handle is @Chris Dufey. That's Chris Dufey, as it means a huge deal to me, as this show is about us coming together as a community to help each other grow, as I really do believe that a rising tide lifts all ships. So take a screenshot, grab the link and share it with a friend that you think could get value out of this together. It will put a huge smile on my face and I very much appreciate it.
And when you start to go into, the deeper you go into science, you start to recognize that we don't really know much. And when I was in school and started to kind of find those edges, it really opened my mind to, oh my God, do we really not know anything? I was in a biochemistry class and my teacher was explaining how our body makes proteins and talking about like, oh yeah, there's this biological machinery and it assembles everything and this other thing folds the protein and voila, you've got protein. And she showed these videos and how it all works. And I was like, how do all the pieces know where to be? Because the cell is a massive space. And she was like, well, we don't really know that. Like, when you say we, what do you mean by that? Like you, the faculty, and it's like, no, like the entire scientific community doesn't know that. Okay, so there are things we don't know. So what don't we know right now? The biggest kind of unknown one of the biggest unknowns in the physics and like science world is really the space of dark matter, the space of dark particles, the things that we cannot see, because all of what we do is based off of light. All of what we do is based off of what we can see. If we can't see it, we can't measure it, then how can we possibly get any data on it? And so there are kind of two interesting discoveries or three really, that kind of start to open up the possibility for astrology having a real foundation. And by the way, I do love astrology. And I'm also very, very cautious of it because it's been around for so many years that there's so much that I can't test myself that I have to take by heart. And what I love about human design is that it's very testable. Some parts aren't, but a lot of them, the most important ones are. And so when you think about these discoveries, one of them is the discovery of dark matter itself, where basically we look at the sky and we say, oh, everything is moving based on how we expect it. No, not at all. In fact, nothing's moving how we expect it. Based on all the lights in the sky, based on how heavy they are, they should move in this way. And instead, they move in a different way. And we say, what the heck? Are our theories wrong? Do we not know how things move? Do we not really understand gravity? Or is it something else? And some scientists is basically like, well, if there was something that was here, and there, but we just couldn't see it, then everything would move accordingly. To how we understand gravity. And then there was like, yeah, there must be something there. Let's call it dark matter. And we literally don't know what it is, but it's there because it's clearly having an effect on the things around it. And so that's one of the first things. The second thing is the discovery of the neutrino. The neutrino is really a mysterious thing because it moves just about the speed of light, and you can shoot it through the earth. Like you can go beyond one side of the earth, shoot it and catch it on the other side or detect it on the other side, and it doesn't slow down. It doesn't seem to really interact with anything. It just kind of flies through everything and moves, and it does have infinitesimal mass. Now, what does this mean? It means that, why is it interesting? Well, first of all, because the fact that it has infinitesimal mass and can pierce almost anything makes it really strange, because nothing should do that. Light doesn't pierce things. It bounces off of things, right? And everything else interacts with matter. This neutrino thing, it doesn't interact with anything. And yet it has mass. So if it has something inside it, how does it not interact? It has to interact with something, doesn't it? But we can't see what it interacts with. We can't detect it. And detecting these things is so hard. The way we currently do it is we build these giant vats of, I don't know, some other chemical and let the neutrino hit that thing, and we wait like 30 years, and then we go, well, it hit like 100 of these things. It's very difficult to detect, very difficult to see, very difficult to measure, very difficult to study. And so when I found out about the neutrino from the perspective of human design, and I found out about dark matter, there's this theory that is really pieced together about how astrology could actually be scientifically based. Because in the realm of human design, what is the theory is that the neutrino actually carries information, that the infinitesimal mass could be a vehicle for information, and that all the neutrinos, if you look at where they're coming from in our solar system, in our galaxy, in our universe, they come from stars. So there are these stars that are emitting these neutrinos, and the theory is that there could be a packet of information inside of those neutrinos that could be being delivered to pretty much everything around them. And so then what you're end up with is this theory of, oh, could there really be some sort of way to deliver information from the stars to us? And the answer is 100%. That's what the human design theory of everything really is about. It's about, is it possible that there's information traveling from the stars into us? And because if that's true, then we would be in a situation where any time of the day we could be experiencing something that is actually coming in from the information. This is what the astrologers call as Mercury in retrograde, or there's some astrological event that's happening and it's influencing us.
Or Moon and Saturn.
There's something that's happening in the celestial bodies that are influencing us, and we know that is possible because based on where the moon is, the tides change.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there is very clearly an impact that celestial bodies have on our Earth, and the question is, could there be an impact that we don't see, that we can't measure? And the answer is, well, 100% it could be.
Yeah.
And in the human design theory, not to go too deep into it, the answer is there is definitely something that is sending out neutrinos, and there could be something that is receiving neutrinos in our bodies that is made out of dark matter.
Yes.
So you can't see the dark matter.
Yes.
And so there is actually a pretty complete theory here that we could go more into, but the gist is there is actually a possibility that the neutrino could be carrying information from celestial bodies, delivering it to us, and having some sort of impact on us.
Thank you for that, Santos. I really appreciate that. That's really goddamn good. So, in my mind now, I feel this calling, and this is so funny because I'm like literally talking exactly what's coming out for me and just like sharing it straight out, but whatever, I'm cool with it. So, I feel this calling where this has to be a part of the body of work that I do because it has been so influential on me. So therefore, it feels right to be able to continue to move this on, and how my mind works, being able to piece these things together, because we were in the conversation of the models, and there was the, there was the tens, there was the hundreds, then there's, what's the name of it? Thousands. Collective. Which one am I? Because I know there was two that came up for me. There was the collective, and high ticket. Oh, okay.
Oh, it was collective, high ticket.
I mean, I'd have to look at your book. We've actually refined this model based on what I see in your chart. You actually, tribal would be a solid model for you.
Okay. Collective, and then the fourth bottom right.
Mass market.
Mass market. Okay, beautiful. So for me, being able to sit with a partner, sit with myself, sit with someone, and being able to, okay, what's this business model? To get this really like a practical, pragmatic point of view, we can start to use this information to now really start to piece this together as well. This seems like I would be an utter idiot not to use this as a part of it as well.
Yes. And ultimately the beauty of this is that there's this whole theory component that can kind of get your mind to open up and realize, hey, we don't actually know everything. Is this possible that there's a scientific grounding to this? 100%.
Yeah, I feel,
And even with astrology, the difference between like knowing, oh, it's the moon is conjunct to Saturn and Saturn is in Libra right now, like, great. How do you apply that? How does that apply to your day-to-day? Human design, sure, it has different elements. It has astrology in it, but it says on your day-to-day, you know that you could have a tribal business model. When you sit down and we test your gut.
This is really what we do in the entrepreneur code. It's how to make it practical. Right? So the way you test this whole theory and could it be possible, you don't even have to think about any of that. Just know it's possible. And it's like, how do you actually test that this is right for me? Well, your decision-making process is to trust your gut. Test it out. Try it for a week. Follow your gut, don't follow your gut. Do a memory test and think back to when you didn't follow your gut. How did that work out?
Or even your strategy is to wait to respond. So the two biggest pieces of this are strategy and decision-making process. You could not know any of all the other details in there, but if you're able to look at your day-to-day life, and for you as a manifesting generator, it's to wait to respond and trust your gut. And so as you navigate and you have a a business idea or you want to do a launch and you look to see, are you waiting to respond to the people, the customers, the students, the individuals who are coming towards you, for you specifically in your network, who are asking for support or a solution to something that you have already role modeled, something that you've either done yourself or that you've guided other people to, then you know, that's my path. When you don't do that, it's like, oh, it's such a grind, it's so hard, we did all these things. We hired the perfect ads person, and we hired this person, and we spent all this time on the launch, and we spent all this time shooting episodes or whatever, and we worked with the perfect people, and we had the perfect affiliates, but none of that matters if you didn't wait to respond or you didn't trust your gut. Because something being logical isn't a prerequisite for it being correct for you. And so that's how you get into this challenge where we're taught to be so logical, and a lot of the business world is very cerebral, and it's great because it gives a structure. Even for us, our marketing process, it's very heady in the way that we go about it. But at the end of the day, the application of it and how you allow it to move forward, and part of how the Entrepreneur Code came for us even is that we would help people get a 5x improvement in their entire business, or we would help them to double their business in less than 18 months, or we would help, and they would come from like below break even on their ad spend, and we'd help them get a 10x return on ad spend in less than 30 days. But then if you were in a business that wasn't in alignment with you, that money just amplified more of what was already there. Because now you're like, you thought that delegating the marketing to someone else and like just getting rid of it and trying to get rid of all the things that way so you could be free and do what you actually wanted to do. If you could just make more money, then you'd be free. When the opposite is that if you would just do what was in alignment with you, you would make more money and you would also be free.
This makes great sense to me. If we were to look at one side and say, oh, but Mercury is in retrograde, I can't do X. I feel a lot of that side of the people that will lean towards, do you know what I mean? What's the label you would put on that?
I'd use dogmatic.
Dogmatic?
Because you can't test that, right? Whereas, like, if, for example, you have this whole Mercury in retrograde means X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
I shouldn't do this or I shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
That's outsourcing your decision.
External,
Yes,
again,
that's what I don't like about
it. It's conditioning. It's looking without to try to get information.
You outsource your decision-making process to Mercury instead of...
And not even to Mercury, to the astrologer,
Yes.
through their interpretation,
Yes.
from another person, from like 100 other people's different interpretation
Yes.
about how you should act now in your day-to-day life.
Yeah.
And even in human design, what we found is that, and this goes a bit more technical, what Mercury retrograde really means is that if we think about the neutrinos bringing information through our planet, that Mercury is giving us...
It is? I think the important thing
I love
to know
that you wanted to go
is
there,
that-
though. I love that you wanted to go there.
The important thing
because
is
I
that
hate the way it's
Mercury
communicated.
in retrograde has an influence, like the moon has an influence on
The tides.
the tides.
Yeah.
But it does not mean that it decides whether you go in the water or not.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Brilliant. Okay, so that's where, because for me, I was like, what's the paradox or the pendulum of what we're doing? There's the kind of, like, one argument would be like, Mercury is retrograde, I can't do anything, so I'm just going to sit on my ass, you know what I mean? And on the other side is like, I'm doing this no matter what, and I must push and fiercely make it happen, do you know what I mean? I was like, well, hang on, where's the golden mean in what we're doing? And I feel like that's what we're being able to bring together. It was a little while ago, I had a mentor ask me, and it was like, all right, in this new chapter of your life, like, what is it that you want to do? And I said, I want to bridge spirituality and success together. I want to bring those two worlds together. And I feel like that's the kind of world. You have the super spiritual side, do you know what I mean? Where they can, and I think there is value, but there is also, do you know what I mean? Things that can go astray, but also in like the super hard-headed, tactical, data-driven, do you know what I mean, entrepreneur, I can play both of those realms. Like I can put my feet in both of those, but I want to bring them together because that's where I feel like the most amount of success, fulfillment, peace, harmony, equanimity starts to actually come across as well.
Yeah.
So my question would then be, when it comes to, actually, where do people go wrong with this?
The number one place where people go wrong with this, I would say, is around not doing it. Not just not getting the awareness in it, or letting something stop them from like actually diving into it, or because they don't get it the first time because there's just not a lot of information out there, then they just kind of set it down and move on.
I would also say that part of what contributes to that is, again, we live in a deeply not self world with lots and lots of conditioning. And so even to give a simple example, a lot of the work that I do when I teach dance is all about feminine embodiment. And so many women have been conditioned to be men and to be very masculine. And especially in business, it's like, you gotta have your funnels and you gotta come in, you gotta be one of the guys, but there are different ways. We know that there are infinite ways to succeed in business. So that must mean that you trying to be some male direct response marketer in your business, and you're a woman who is more artistic, or a woman who is maybe more logical but has your own process of doing it, or even a man who aligns more with feminine energy or is more holistic in the way that you show up in the world. There's not just one way to do things. And you can know and go through and have an experience. Like I had a bunch of friends enroll in doing this program with Mama Gina. And it's very out there for it's like deep into the feminine work. And it was shocking for a lot of them because it was so outside their worldview. But every single person went in and experienced so much pleasure and so much transformation. It changed their relationships, it changed their business, it changed their friendships, it changed their bond. To this day, they have such a deep bond around it. And even for me who does this work, again, heretic, deeply skeptical, right? Always testing. We live in a society that conditions us away from pleasure, that says you can't be feminine or shames those things or has all kinds of constructs and rules around how we need to show up. And so while you may hear, I'm a manifesting generator, I just have to trust my gut and I have to wait to respond. Got it. Simple. Not easy, because then everywhere in the world, people are putting different ideas in your head and you have open head centers. You're designed to be an intellectual. But once you hear it loud enough and often enough that, nope, you can't just wait for things to come to you. You've got to go out and you've got to make it happen. Then you go back to your desk and you're like, great, how do we make this happen? How do we force this? How do we do these things? Stuff isn't moving fast enough. When those are actually the not self themes of your design, that rather to surrender and wait to respond and allow things to come to you or notice what is coming towards me, and to then inform and initiate from there, to respond from there. All of the large part of our society and our world is conspiring against that because we've just been so deeply conditioned to do what's not correct for us.
My biggest failing and mistake as an entrepreneur thus far has not been allowing and giving myself the space and time just to sit back, reflect, be the introspective journal and just be like, and that allowing to receive, because it's been very interesting how recently the right people will just come to me out of nowhere. And the things that they were saying, and I was like, it was actually really interesting because I didn't pick up on it. I'd probably be in a gutter somewhere if it wasn't thanks to Lauren, but I had I had a bunch of colleagues message me randomly, and they were like, "Can we jump on a call? I really need some help with business." But okay, cool. More than happy to. And then one day, I just did a couple of Zoom calls back to back, just off my phone. I was in the lounge room, and then Lauren came up to me and she goes, "This is what you're supposed to be doing." And I'm like, "Doing what?" And she's like, "This is the work that you need to be doing." And I was like, "Oh, no, I'm just chatting, talking shit, I'm jamming with these people." And she's like, "No, this is it." And
right,
I'm like, "Oh,
the bike on the lower gear. This
too
is
easy.
so too easy."
So you literally give me goosebumps saying that, because for me, that led to the realization, number one, I finally saw that I was like, oh, because I literally then, it was later that day, I got back in contact with a few of them. And I was like, was that any value from that conversation that we had? And one of them was like, dude, you just added hundreds of thousands of dollars to my business, just from that one conversation. That blew my mind. I was like, I hung up the phone. I was like, okay, interesting. Talk to the next person. That was mind blowing. Yeah. I was like, okay. I was like, okay, this is interesting. I found it enjoyable. And
which is your path to success as a manifesting generator.
Second biggest mistake I've made is I've never thus far allowed joy to guide me.
Yeah.
And if there's something I could help plant for other people to pick up, is don't allow that to happen.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I just hadn't let joy to be able to help go, oh, this is really joy. For example, one thing was having this conversation right now, extremely joyful for me. Do you know what I mean? And it's do more of this. And I'm very happy to be in this path and like situation where I can do more of this. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not even monetizing this. Do you know, like this isn't like, oh, I do this and I get X dollars or anything like that. It's like that's not there at all.
Yeah.
I'm just feeling. I think it's the first time in my life I'm actually following that this is my path of joy.
Do you want to hear something that's probably blow your mind?
Please.
There's another key in the entrepreneur code that's about your motivation. And everyone talks about what motivates you, right? What you're describing is you've allowed your motivation hasn't been joy, right? And you're saying maybe it should be, right? So every entrepreneur has a different motivation, and yours is a motivation of guilt. You're literally designed to follow what you feel is like going to make you a little bit guilty.
Which is where you're talking
No
about.
shit.
Yes, and you have a personal destiny, so you're designed to be. That's why when you started and you're a role model, you're like, I'm just going to talk about it from my perspective, selfishly. That is your path to selflessness. That is your path to like having the whole impact on the whole collective and transforming the world. It's through being selfish and doing the things that you would feel guilty doing, but it's actually correct for you.
This motivation is so intense. I was having a session. It was like a whole 90-minute session with an entrepreneur. He runs an acupuncture clinic, okay? He's so tired. He's running for years. He's like, at this whole session, you get tons of clarity about what he should do in this business and what the next steps are. And because his motivation was guilt, I asked him, what is the thing that you would feel the most guilty doing right now? And he's like, just taking a week off of work.
But mind you, this person is a reflector. They're designed to rest before they're tired because they're non-energy beings.
Just taking a week
They have to
off,
take their
just
time.
so tired. Have you ever tried to solve a problem when you're like haven't slept in 2 days? You can't, right? And that's where he's at. And so the best thing he could do isn't to follow some really amazing business or marketing strategy. It's to literally find a way to take a week off. That's it. It's the guilt that is actually driving him. And this is such a weird concept because, you know, for example, it is fear. And we did a talk at a mastermind, at a friend's mastermind. And when I explained like the fear, the motivation key, it was like, look, it wasn't like, this is going to be an amazing talk. This is going to be so enjoyable. Let's prepare for it. No, it was fear. I'm like, what happens if we don't do the right thing, say the right thing? What if people don't like it? It's like, it was fear that drove her to prepare. Her motivation is different.
But his is different. His is hope.
Mine is hope.
And so when he goes into something, he's got to feel hope. But see,
I was like, it's going to be great. I already see the perfect vision for it.
but here's what happens. When you're in your not self, then he starts to be motivated by guilt. And so anytime he's feeling guilty about something, he knows, oh wow, that's not self. For you, whenever you start to feel like, well, I just hope it'll work out.
Hope.
Feeling driven by hope, that's actually incorrect for you. That's another guidepost to let you know, ooh, how am I not waiting to respond?
my
How am I
God.
ignoring my gut?
Oh my God.
Let's just hope it works out. Hope is definitely not a strategy for you at all.
Yeah, it's not.
Fuck, that is so salient to me right now because there was literally something that just happened and it was like, it was hope and it just didn't work.
And I'm willing to bet that you either didn't wait to respond or you ignored your gut and where it was guiding
I
you
did
with that
on
situation.
both.
And you
Every time.
probably would have felt guilty doing the thing that was in highest alignment for you and selfish in some way. And so you said, no, I'm just gonna let it, I'm gonna be selfless, I'm gonna be totally not self and just hope that it works out. And it never works out.
And this is the real data that you can get. And as a scientist, I know generally science is like get a whole big data set, right? But if you're just a personal scientist, like scientist for yourself, and you have data for yourself, that can do a lot.
And there are thousands of data points throughout your day, from like what to eat. The other day I was at a brunch and I told myself before that day, I was like, I've been eating a lot of fried food. I don't really want to have any more of that. And I wasn't feeling like dairy. I mean, we mostly eat a purely plant-based diet anyway. And I was like, I'm just not feeling it right now. And I forgot, and I'm sitting there and I ate some falafel, fried, and then there was like some yogurt that came with the potato. As soon as I ate it, I had like stomach pain and I didn't eat anything for the rest of that brunch. And it sucked because the food was so great, but like data point. I can use that as information for me where I think, you know, my gut told me not to, and I did it anyway.
It's all testable. There's a difference
All
between something that's
verifiable.
testable and something that's dogma. I'm not just telling you, hey, you should like just motivate yourself through guilt.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, have you ever felt guilty about something and it like actually worked out? And you're like, actually.
And it's not a
I feel
guru
guilty
model.
about this podcast. It's actually working out.
Yeah.
Actually.
So going on this trip,
Yeah.
the guilt on doing this and like
Yeah.
leaving the girls and like my wife, and they're so supportive, but I felt so guilty about coming and doing this.
Yeah.
the jet lag kicked in last night and I was like messaging my wife at like 2 a.m. and I was just like, I'm having the best time ever. And she's like seen photos and she's like, you are glowing, like you look younger, like what the hell? And I'm like, I feel so in alignment right now. It is insane.
It's way better to spend, an hour with your family as your true self, as somebody who's just like completely activated yourself, who you are, versus to be with them all day.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week,
just be a tormented human being.
So frustrated and angry.
And they don't actually get either that. They get the not version of you.
Yeah.
I'm going to sit down and listen to this multiple times over because I feel like there really is so much to take away from this, and I'm going to be bugging you both a lot moving forward. Anytime. Because like immediately I'm like, okay, the partners that I work with, like so much has just fallen into place immediately. And I'm going to have to sit down this afternoon and just like piece this together, because it's just when being able to help someone design their business so that they best flourish. I feel like I can see the Matrix right now. I know that sounds so fucking crazy and grandiose and
in fact, the founder of Human Design called his tool, like the thing that helps us pull up charts, he called it Maya Mechanics, which is basically the mechanics of the Matrix. Yeah. And this is what we're able to see by looking at, how do you make decisions? You're not making decisions based on, they're bumping into a bunch of shit. They're really frustrated. Yeah, that's not who they are. Have you been trusting your gut? It's like, nope. And you can see very clearly and start to predict as well.
Yeah.
I think this is actually like one of the real essences of the work that you do with people is the feeling that I have now is such clarity and strength and the foundation for everything then to be built on. Like there is no other like questioning or options or anything like that that says like, that's it. And I think whether it's, and even like when I was thinking when after I just asked the question, like, can you sell me on it to kind of get rid of the heretic inside of me right now? And you answered in the way that 100% then my intellectual side was like, cool, got it. But then even inside it's like, well, even worst case scenario, if this is a placebo effect, for example, if you just allowing me to have the feeling that I have right now is what an entrepreneur needs to successfully move forward.
Yeah. And that's even, the thing about placebo, because I come from a medical family. My father is a doctor, my brother's a doctor. They joke, because I have a West African background, that a West African child can be one of three things: a doctor, an engineer, or a disappointment. So it's all very like, that world of placebo and nocebo and all of that. Oftentimes, what I found interesting is that we talk about placebo as though it doesn't work. Like,
or
it's just
it's
placebo.
not real.
It's not real. When really, they're given a name to an effect that produces a result.
Correct.
And so
that we don't know how it works.
And we don't know how it works, right? And how many other things in reality do we not know how it works? And so we give it a name, we put it in a box, and there's judgment around it, like, it's just placebo. But does it work?
It works.
And that's where the experimentation comes in, and that's why it's so great.
And this is now what leads us back to the realm of dark matter and consciousness and all this stuff that we just don't understand.
Yeah.
Could placebo really be an effect of us literally creating realities based off of what we think and our thoughts?
Now you get into quantum science.
I was listening to a podcast on panpsychism this morning and just getting like so into it. I was like, oh my God, this is so good. This has been utterly fascinating, this conversation. Thank you so much to the two of you. I love what you do. I highly recommend what you do as well. It's been profound what the impact is that you've been able to provide me. So personally, from me, thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for coming here today and for us being able to do this. We're going to have to do more because there is so many more layers I want to continue to go down as well. Yeah. It is remarkable. It is so good that it has to be, do you know what I mean, a remark made of just how great this is of what you two are doing. So I just want you to thrive and flourish and to be able to get this work out into the world. Where does the listener go right now to be able to find out more about what the two of you are doing?
abusinessbydesign.com. It's the best place to find us right now.
Beautiful. What's one thing in a nutshell you want someone to walk away with from this conversation?
Do you want to start?
I would say that just remember that your path to success is unique, and that it's okay to do things differently, and that anything that helps you to build self-awareness and helps you understand who you really are is amazing, and that's the best place to be, who you are.
Yeah, and I would say you were born perfect, whole, and complete. You have all of the answers that you need within you to grow the business you love, live the life you love, have the relationships that you truly desire, and that have compassion with yourself as you navigate this journey, because we're all journeying home. We're all figuring this out. That's part of the game of why we're here, to figure this out. And so to, like Santos said, use the tools and the people and the communities and the support that can help guide you back to the truth that's already within you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, Chris. Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for joining me in this episode. I really, truly hope that you have enjoyed this. Now, if you haven't subscribed to the show, please do so, because it would be a bummer if you'd miss out on the amazing episodes that are going to be coming. And one of the best ways for you to be able to support the show is to leave a review and to be able to share it out on social. And if you do share it out on social, please tag me. My handle is @Chris Dufey, that's Chris Dufey, as I would love to say a personal thank you for you sharing it out, and for you to join us on the show as well. And as always, thank you so much. I feel privileged, I feel thankful, I feel grateful. I feel really blessed being able to do this and being able to have you join us as we figure this stuff out that we call life at the end of the day, and being able to do it with amazing conversations that we do here in this show together as well. So I'm wishing you an amazing day, and I'm really looking forward to us coming together in the next episode.